Thanks very much. I'm happy to be here. Thank you again today. Some of you may remember on Monday I finished my talk by talking about the importance of thinking about beaches as a complex socio-ecological system, many different values and functions related in a system driving our adaptive capacity for the future. So how can our beaches stay resilient into the future? And so this morning I'm going to just talk briefly about another project that's been going on. And actually I'm speaking for Dr. Kiki Patch, who's on the slide there. She was hoping to be here in Rio. She's very sorry she could not make it due to unforeseen circumstances, but I'm here to present mostly her work. It's her work with some of her colleagues at California State University system in Channel Islands near Santa Barbara. So I'm going to talk about this project and ongoing effort called the Beach Sustainability Assessment, which relates to some of the things I was starting to talk about at the end of my talk on Monday. And so this project she's been working on with some colleagues, including myself, fortunate to be part of this team, interdisciplinary team, looking at how can we use methods to better quantify, measure, monitor sustainability of beaches over time for the purposes of developing information for managers. So how can managers make better decisions about beaches with better information about how beaches are changing or not in different aspects. And this little icon here, the People's Beach, is this notion they developed in the project. That one of the main reasons we're here today, and also projects like this, is we're concerned about the beach for people, all people. So just really quickly, the Beach Sustainability Assessment Network, or BSA, started as this effort to develop an index that we could use to measure the geophysical, geomorphological characteristics of beaches, how they might change, how they might provide geophysical buffering, risk reduction, mitigation factors for communities. Ecological function of beaches was another piece of that puzzle, and then also a social utility function as part of the beach sustainability equation. And Kiki and others wrote this article a couple of years ago to summarize this method. And they started by identifying 17 target beaches in the area of Ventura County and Santa Barbara. And those are the beaches that they focused on. And they've been gradually gathering data every year. And they have a group of students who come and go every year and help collect this data, go out to the beaches and collect various different measures of beach change and beach characteristics. And those things include, now for 6 years, they've been collecting things like the photographs, what's the beach condition, what's the back beach, at the back of the beach, what does that landscape look like, what are the birds they see, how many invertebrates are in the sand, crabs, trash, plastic, all kinds of things you could go out and observe on the beach. And so it's partly a citizen science or a student science driven project. And on the right hand side of this slide, you see they have this app now, which they have, that the students use. They take their cell phones and they bring up the app. They say, I'm at this beach this time, here's what I'm seeing, and they record all this information. And that's what's gone into the development of this index for the BSA project. So they've also coupled that with aerial photography and LiDAR and interpretation of aerial photography to understand the physical morphology of each of these beaches. What do they look like, and how do the elevations change? What are the widths of different sections of the beach? And then on the ecological dimension, they have another colleague who developed different pieces of what makes up the ecology of a beach and how could we measure that ecology and change over time. The slide, you can't really read. This one might be a little better, but it has the carbon inputs is one of the things that they're measuring for the ecological functioning of a beach. So going out and seeing how much kelp might be on the beach, the rack that comes up and dries and sits on the beach as a measure of how much carbon is going into that sand system. Landscape integrity index, how many of the different beach zones are present in a particular place, the surf zone, the dry beach, the upper beach, the back beach. Biodiversity index, looking and seeing what kinds of birds and maybe mammals, but invertebrates they're seeing in the sand. An endangered species index, measuring if there are nesting sensitive bird habitat, for example. And then a stress index and so they combine all this into an ecological index as part of the puzzle. And then the geomorphological functioning of the beach. They're using a methodology from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers that looks at different physical dimensions of beaches. So what is the elevation, protective elevation of the beach system in a particular location? How much sand is there, the volume of the sand? These are all things Flavia can explain better than me. The protective width of a beach, like in Copacabana, we were just talking, it's maybe 200 meters, 150, 200 meters wide. Protective width, the crest freeboard, how much height you have between the elevation of the ocean and the high point of the beach, and then wave run-up index. And so you can calculate how protective or resilient the beach is in a geomorphological sense. So finally, that brings us to the social utility index. And in this particular project, they've emphasized how many people are coming to a beach, how many are visiting, and what kinds of activities are they doing. So is there a wide variety of activities, different kinds of uses of the beach? You see many different uses out here, for example, and many people. So that would be a high index versus a lower index where there are fewer people using the beach in fewer ways. So they've taken all, don't try to read this, but they've put all these indices together, and then they grade them from A, B, C, D, F. And you may know that's the standard school grading system in the United States. If you're doing really well, you're getting A's, straight A student, right? That's that song. I don't claim to be a straight A student. So if you're getting A's, that's great. If you're getting F's, that's bad. And that's the grading system. They've come up with a range of values for each index to come up with the grades of a beach. So these are some examples looking at the ecological function. An A might be, for example, a dune-backed beach with integrated ecological zones, rich carbon input, support for high biodiversity, and minimal stressors. A D would be a narrow beach with a developed back beach, like in an urban area, minimal carbon input, maybe they're grooming the beach every day for recreation, so there's no ecology left on the sand. Low biodiversity, high stressors, for example. Going to the geomorphological, an A would be a wide beach, elevated berm, dunes maybe, large volume of sand to withstand storm surge, wave run-ups, wave attack. A D would be maybe a wide but low elevation, low slope beach with little to no berm or dunes, so the waves could easily run up and attack backshore or development. In the case of the social utility index, the way they've set this up, an A might be a popular, wide sandy beach, easily accessed by transit, by car, with amenities such as volleyball, showers, lifeguards, snack bars, typically in a major metropolitan area. Kind of like here, would be an A beach. Is that better? Okay. So that would be an A beach with lots of activities, lots of people. The D beach, maybe it's hard to reach that beach. We visited a beach yesterday that was less accessible to most people. Perhaps it has dangerous access. It might be next to conditions that are not safe, and then it has very limited amenities at that beach. So that would be a low grade. They take all these indices together, grading each dimension of the index, and then they come up with an overall grade for each of those 17 beaches. And then they plotted it on this map here, and you can see the different grades within each circle, each social utility, ecological, geomorphological, and then the overall grade in the middle of that. So they come up with this index for the beaches. And then they've also taken a look at how might these indices change with sea level rise and change over time with each beach, and to measure that, how the grade of a particular beach is going to change with respect to that potential sea level rise of 1 meter, for example, or 2 meters, in order to get a better sense of where are the stress points relative to each other, which beaches are going to do better or worse, be more sustainable or less sustainable over time. And that's what you see here, is that the grades change, they go down. And so in this paper, they've assessed that on average, there was a specific reduction in the grade or indices value for each beach. I want to talk briefly about one extension of the methodology. Is the BSA team has been mapping various public access amenities on beaches. So these are different things like barbecues, play fields, basketball courts, benches, picnic tables, lifeguard towers, all the things that we put onto the in and around the beach to support public access amenities. They've mapped about 5,400 of these facilities in California, which with GIS points, geographic information points. Then they've overlaid the projected sea level rise onto those points up and down California's coast. And that's showing you the overlay of projected sea level rise with the access amenities. And then they did some simple statistics to show how, for example, statewide, 100 access points will be lost for every foot of sea level rise. So in Ventura County, for example, 8 access points lost per 1 foot of sea level rise. Santa Barbara County, 3.6. So showing you how sea level rise, it's not rocket science, but it's science showing you that as the sea level goes up, it's going to be affecting the amenities we have on the beach. And so that's a management challenge. This final slide is simply showing you how they quantified the reduction in the indices and the overall index for each of the 3 pieces with sea level rise. So this is with 1 meter, I think, of predicted sea level rise, showing you the negative values. Each beach is going to lose some measure of sustainability over time as sea level rises. So that's the overview, and thank you very much for the opportunity to present.
Good morning. I'd like to start by saying thank you for having us here. It's wonderful to be a part of this beach access network with our wonderful colleagues from France, Brazil, colleagues from California, and hopefully to expand that to more people who are interested in this research topic regarding public access, coastal squeeze, and our changing and rapidly evolving world around all those issues. Thank you, Letícia, for the introduction. My name is Mesa. I work for the Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority. I'm here representing the MRCA's Coastal Access Program, which also is led by our fearless leader, my mentor and friend, Elena Ager, who can't be here today, but sends her love and appreciation, and obviously a lot of her intellect in this presentation along with our cohort. So with that, just jump right in. The Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority owns and manages over 80,000 acres of state and local lands across Ventura, Los Angeles, and Orange counties. You can see that on the map here in green. This landscape includes the majority of publicly available access sites and beaches within the city of Malibu, which you can see boxed here in blue. Zooming in on the city of Malibu and the various public land holdings in the Santa Monica Mountains, you see here dotted along the coastline are the public coastal access points and beaches managed by the state, county, and local agencies like the MRCA. The ones you see here in green are owned and managed by the MRCA along the coastline. The ones in the other colors are obviously managed by state and county authorities. This is the focus of my work and the landscape that we manage. The MRCA's Malibu Coastal Access Program has been exceedingly successful at acquiring, constructing, and opening public access sites and beaches. And in recent years, we now operate 21 available sites that include, as you can see here, 13 beach access ways, 2 coastal overlooks, 5 sandy beaches, and 1 safe highway undercrossing. We do this in coordination with our state partners, like the Coastal Commission, State Coastal Conservancy, and our colleagues at the State Attorney General's Office. While we've been implementing these projects, we've also been laying the groundwork, planning for the future implementation and operation of an additional 17 new public coastal access sites and opportunities in the coming years, and we'll hopefully have a total of 38 by 2028, which is an enormous jump from 10 sites in 2018 in just 1 decade. As managers and practitioners, we recognize that robust monitoring and reliable data is critical to our planning efforts and the successful provision of equitable coastal access. In that spirit, we took part in the formation of a working group, California Coastal Access Cell Phone Data Working Group, to share data, to share funding, personnel resources, to share methodologies, and to share products and partnerships. Clearly, it's a very collegial working group with some exciting products coming online. Using big data in this case, cell phone location records may contribute to coastal access information and data which can assist agencies in decision-making, and it can help better understand how the public uses the beach and avails themselves of these coastal opportunities. We are particularly interested in understanding how underserved and under-resourced communities currently use coastal access in Southern California. Our project hopes to confirm the utility and gaps that this type of big data may fill in, and to develop new ways to both visualize and understand the data, its limitations, and its potential to inform decision-making. We're hoping that the sharing of sources, methods, and data deliverable products will result in the determination of results, inform decision-making, and engage stakeholders and the public community. This project has already resulted in the creation of a technical report with and for working group members and an academic publication in the Journal of Coastal Research, presenting the results of an initial mobile device location data pilot project detailing data sources, data availability, data privacy, data type forms, data acquisition, storage, processing, methods of analysis, and the discussion on the limitations of that data and the validation through more traditional methods such as physical beach counts and intercept surveys. The initial pilot project covers 51 points of interest, or POIs, beaches, across Santa Barbara, Ventura, and Los Angeles County. This includes 16 beaches in Malibu managed by the MRCA and other state and local agencies. In this pilot, we wanted to gain a broader understanding by posing various questions that can be formed by this big data. Like, for instance, what is the demographic and socioeconomic profile of beach users? Where are they coming from? Where are they going between beaches? Why do they go to that beach? How long do they spend at that beach? What are some push-pull factors that drive their use of that beach? Are there externalities like extreme heat events? Or like, for instance, during 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic? How is the beach being used there? How can this big data that we've acquired inform how people are using the beach, especially across those scenarios? Now we will look at one of these sites, which is a beach. It's a good case study example because it is a, quote, hidden beach. It's a small pocket beach, about 6.5 acres of sandy beach in western Malibu, close to the Ventura County line. Our preliminary findings make us rethink many long-held assumptions about Malibu and the public that recreates at these beaches. Here are points of interest captured at the sandy beach, the free parking on the nearest public road here, and this is our defined geography for the public usership at Wachusett Beach. Unsurprisingly, the data shows that the majority of Wachusett Beach visitors are from LA County and nearby Ventura County. As we suspected, however, total beach user market area, or BUMA, or the visitor shed that brings visitors to these beaches, includes a substantial visitorship from neighboring counties as well. Some 76,000 visitors came from these neighboring counties, with about 33,000 visitors from the non-coastal inland counties of San Bernardino and Riverside County, which you can see just to the east of Los Angeles County there. As we zoom in at a larger scale, we see that roughly 18% of total California visitors over 6 years originated from census tracts that fall within the 30% most vulnerable and disadvantaged communities in Southern California and across the state. They come to these beaches, even though that these communities have a higher distance, lower economic resources, and despite that, still come to this popular pocket beach. We combined disaggregated census information with cell phone origin location information, so we can estimate the demographics of beach users, including racial and ethnic populations, and most importantly in the region by breaking up the Hispanic Latino populations from the white US paradigm that Mark described on Monday. So what are the highlights of this novel methodology for estimating beach visitorship? For the first time, we can get high resolution information about visitor origins. We can now analyze relative comparisons across multiple beaches and multiple dimensions in a very granular scale. It pairs up well with our state metrics and tools for measuring community vulnerability, and we can generate a multitude of research questions that can be addressed by this data. But like any data source, there are limitations to what we can surmise from this mobile location data alone, and only further emphasize the need to combine this novel method to estimate visitorship with traditional methods to validate our results. As I said earlier, as land managers, we are constantly rethinking how to best serve the public recreating along the coast, but better data also supports more equitable access. The usership and demand is already there, but the public investment is lagging behind the usership. The big data we now have in hand, combined with user qualitative survey data and beach counts, can help us plan for current and future needs. Beacon, with its partners, conducted a 2024 beach survey challenge to combine on-the-ground data with our new large-scale mobile data. From June to August of 2024, 616 beach intercept surveys were conducted across 9 Southern California beaches, including 3 in the city of Malibu and including our case study site at Letícia Beach, which you can see here in brown. These 2 bar graphs compare the summary of responses to the question above, why did you choose this beach today? As you can see, there's a variety of answers that people provided in the survey. This type of qualitative data is very revealing. As you can see at Letícia, for instance, proximity to your residence is not why they chose to go to that beach. You can see that is the smallest captured answer. Visitors choose this beach because it is scenic and they find it particularly beautiful, enough to go out of their way to go visit it and spend their day there. These 2 bar graphs show the results of what visitors plan on doing at the beach, showing a variety of preferences for passive and active recreational and leisure activities that are common across Southern California beaches, and of course not unique to California, but common beach activities internationally. So, moving forward, what can we do? The on-the-ground intercept surveys serve as a sample for the validation and calibration of this mobile location data. We are refining our methods for creating these POI geographies. And we're diving deeper into the comparisons of intercept survey data across sites and creating a series of products for public visitation across space, time, and political boundaries. And of course, we are continuing to build on the partnerships and knowledge sharing within and outside the working group. So beyond the challenges that face us regarding how we do this work, there's obviously other externalities and challenges that are presented to us that are entirely out of our control. For instance, in January of this year, we had the largest urban fire in our city's history. The Palisades fire, the Eaton fire, burned just over 20,000, or actually nearly 30,000 acres of actual land and open space, which is an enormous area. But more importantly, it was very destructive as far as an urban fire and conflagration that was a wind-driven event. We lost about 17,000 structures in this fire, which included commercial businesses, private residences, schools, libraries, places of worship. And as you can see in these photos and in this context, there was widespread destruction across eastern Malibu, which destroyed a lot of private residences, a lot of which were on the beachfront, as you can see in that photo here. That is La Costa Beach. I'm sure many of you saw these images in the news. I think the world stopped for a moment and watched our city burn. Here is the footprint of the Palisades fire as it relates to the landscape. I'll be showing you a map where that overlaps with our program map so you can understand the direct impacts that we had to many of our sites and a lot of our landscape. So what does that mean for public access in our context? Well, when it comes to catastrophe and disaster, there is no real playbook. We're not the best at planning for disaster. We're never really proactive at the scales that we are now facing disaster in a changing climate. And so that means that we are reactionary in response to these catastrophes and disasters. And in our level of governance, there is obviously broad emergency powers that are afforded to the executives at any level of governance, like our governor, county supervisors, and then city mayors and executives. And so when it comes to broad emergency powers, when you're dealing with a reactionary response that is emotional, traumatic, it rarely is apolitical. It is rarely unbiased, and it is rarely neutral. I think later on we'll be hearing from a lecturer, Cidadania. In her book, she states that when the wealthy are involved, public rights are negotiable. And in this instance, that is exactly what we're seeing. Here is a view of the fire footprint, the open space holdings that are held and managed by the MRCA that were directly affected by the footprint of the fire. And you can also see various coastal access sites that were directly impacted by this fire. On the bottom left, you can see one of the coastal access sites we actually visited last year on a tour. It's been closed since the fire, obviously, for obvious reasons, safety reasons. But now that the highway's been opened, all of the coastal access sites which are undamaged and unaffected by the fire directly remain closed within the footprint. Here you can see an aerial image of La Costa Beach from January of 2024. And this is the image of that same beach in January of this year, just 2 days from the ignition of the fire. Obviously, there's widespread devastation. It looked like a nuclear bomb went off in the region. And this beach that had about 29 residences on it, there's only about 3 of those homes that remain standing at the far west end of the beach that you see here, and the beach club in the center. So, zooming out a little bit on our landscape, you can still see the fire footprint in the far eastern extent of Malibu. But you might ask why I show you this. The footprint in eastern Malibu ended pretty much in central Malibu. And you see Letícia Beach boxed out in red there. That's our case study site. It's about 13 miles away from the actual extent of the fire footprint. Immediately following the fire, all of the MRCA's coastal parks, beaches, and accessways were closed at the request of the city and remained closed for about 136 days, pretty much the same time period that the highway was closed. In that photo that you saw earlier, you saw a National Guardsman posted at checkpoints, monitoring about a 10-mile stretch of highway that was most affected on our coastal highway to allow for the cleanup and emergency operations. And as our governor touts, it was the fastest urban wildfire cleanup in the history of the country. To their credit, the Army Corps of Engineers did mobilize very quickly. And of course, since our cleanup operation was done by a branch of our military, they would account for how much debris removal was being removed from these beaches and these properties in tonnage that you can calculate as how many aircraft carriers of debris have we removed from our beaches and our landscape. And so understanding that there's externalities to disasters and crises and catastrophe that go beyond the actual physical impact of that catastrophe because of political jurisdiction boundaries, the sympathy and requests under crisis from certain local executives to state executives, and as you can see, had a broader impact than what was directly affected by the fire. And so when we see things like that, having good data like we just presented, showing the usership, the visitorship, the fact that it's widespread and does not necessarily come from a locality, say like the metropolitan region that's immediately adjacent to it, we're able to understand that when we make arbitrary decisions about management and closing public access, that they have far-reaching impacts that affect more than the community that's directly affected. As you saw, a large amount of the visitorship to Wachusett Beach comes from Ventura County, which is immediately to the west. Ventura County had access to Malibu through the coastal highway. They were not closed off as Los Angeles was, but yet those sites were closed off, and the people who obviously come to visit and recreate at those places were not allowed to because they were closed under the emergency orders that were cast down at local levels. So I don't know if this video is going to work or if you're going to be able to hear it. I didn't test it out before we started. But in addition to the planning challenges, data monitoring challenges that we have, there's obviously the consistent and pervasive challenge that never goes away, which is the exclusivity of these public spaces by private actors, local residents that want to preclude the public from recreating at these public spaces or from being able to access the public trusts or public easements in certain cases. In this video, I have an exchange with a private security guard. If you can hear it, we'll see. The audio is connected, so I'll just pause it there. Well, I mean, you can understand through the body language that I was walking down the beach on my day off. It was the 4th of July, which is our Independence Day. I was there with my family. I was walking to the far end of the beach, which you can kind of see in the top right photo. I was going to a lateral easement that's in front of that home there. I was walking in the wet sand. As I was walking, I heard yelling in the distance. I told my father to wait there, and I went to go talk to this gentleman that you see in the yellow shirt there. He is a private security guard that's hired by the Homeowners Association to keep the area secure and make sure that people can access. Private residents have beach lots that they own on that end of the beach. Those beach lots have public easements over them. They have the public trust in front of it, and they have public lateral easements beyond it. And so what I was explaining to the security guard was that I had a right to be where I was, and I had a right to go where I was going. And he told me I couldn't do that. I needed to go back. I needed to go around because I was in the wrong and I didn't understand. I informed him that he didn't understand. And so these are challenges that we face in our work and our daily lives as just members of the public, not just professionals and practitioners. So with that, I will leave you. Over to you.
I will talk about with you the coastal snap station. I will be very brief because of the time. I hope the video could pass, but I don't know because it is short, but we pass after. I will present, as I say, CoastalSnap Brasil, clique da praia, em português, Community Beach Monitoring. Well, we know that coastal lines very dynamic systems, and for better understand this process, it's necessary to monitoring this. And I love this sentence that says, beaches are interesting because they never are the same. So you can see here a comparison of Mediador Beach in a stormy day and a beautiful day, weather. And it's important also to understand that beach variability is not the same of coastal erosion. So beach variability is when we have the morphological dynamics of beaches related to variation of oceanographic processes and conditions. Beach can suffer erosion during a storm, strong waves and storm surge, but they can recover. But it's different from coastal erosion. Coastal erosion is the actual coastal line recession when sediment ridges imbalance occur. So the beach cannot recover. And we have to do monitoring to understand that. We have many kinds of mappings and monitoring systems of coastline. So we can monitor the beach with topographic in loco. Instruments like balizas de emery sticks, I think you know that. Monitoring the position of coastal line using aerial photography or remote sensing. Monitoring the position of coastal line using Google Earth Engine, for example. Or nowadays we can do this with photos from cellular phones using CoastalSnap. And I'm talking about this. So, coastal lines relies on a repeat photos at the same location to track how the coast is changing over time due to processes such as storms, rising sea levels, human activities, and other factors. Using a specialized technique known as photogrammetry, CoastalSnap turns your photos into valuable coastal data that is used for coastal science to understand and forecast how coastline might change in the coming decades. Photogrammetry enables the position of the coastline to be pinpointed from your snaps to an accuracy similar to that of professional coastal survey teams. This methodology was created in Australia by Mitchell. I forgot the first name. And he is really brilliant guy that researched, very young guy. And nowadays we have this around the world. It's very simple. We ask you to take the photos at the same location, use your cell phone, and after that you send to the team these photos by QR code, for example, or you can input it at an app. Everyone can download the app CoastalSnap in your cell phone. The more photos we have of a particular site, the better our understanding becomes of how the coastline has changed over time. As I was saying, we have a global citizen science project now. So we have these spots, these stations around the world. We have 200 stations, CoastalSnap stations in total. And in the app of cell phone, you can see everyone. It's the image from app. So you can see every station and see the photos and who is collaborating and so on. Here is the technical background of that. So we have to collect the image, and after that we have to use MATLAB or Python to align this image. We have to do this process. We have to go to the field to do the survey of the ground control points. And so we can geo-rectify the image and detect and do the shoreline detection and compare where is the shoreline. Here's an example of the survey of ground controls for this georeferencing at Prainha Beach at Rio de Janeiro. Many points we have to do in the field. And here the aligning process at MATLAB. And an example of time-lapse in Australia. So you can really do the measure of width and to understand this channel, for example, the style channel. Here the examples of a line photo from Prainha. Okay. And here we use this technology to tracking and store. So we do a comparison in 2 days before and after I store at Prainha with these methodologies. Coastal Map in Brazil today, we have 50 research and 22 scholarship students from 14 institutions, 34 stations distributed across 8 coastal states. So from Amapá to Rio Grande do Sul, 34 stations spread across these 8 states along Brazilian coastal line. We see here Amapá and Rio Grande do Sul. Some results, briefly, we have an example from Barra Velha, Santa Catarina. Here, from Tal do Peró, in Rio de Janeiro State, monitoring a tidal channel. We can see the time lapse to see the change. Here, Praia de Camboinhas in Niterói, monitoring the CEOs. When we started, they doesn't exist yet. So they don't, these CEOs, and now we can see how it is and working. And here we have a time lapse showing great variability of this beach, including the person, the people, and the users. Faz agora. Aqui. Não está passando.
Não acho.
Não acho. Okay. Okay, another example at the United States, also Praia Conquista, Macaé. Several erosion, we can put tracking this between July and August, and the recovery after that. So it's very, very interesting to see that these photos could show it to us. Sergipe, Praia do Saco, Marina and Caí. We can also tracking the severe erosion process there. And to finish, I would like to say that this kind of monitoring and technology would be a potential contribution of participatory beach monitoring to engage the people in this coastal citizen science, and that this kind of monitoring could also collaborate to coastal zone management in Brazil. We can collaborate to that plans that we heard about this Monday, and laws and fiscalization and so on. So I think it's a very good method to adopt here in Brazil. So thank you. And we have a video, but I think we could pass after because of the time. Okay, thank you.